Hello everyone, my name is Greg Larson and this is The Greg Larson Show. Please come and see me live. My show is called Unrelenting Ultraviolence. It's on in Melbourne starting on the 26th of March at Cooper's Inn during the Melbourne Comedy Festival. 10 shows only. I'm not doing the full month, I'm doing a half run. Unless they sell out, and then maybe I'll do some more. Come and see me, Cooper's Inn, Melbourne Comedy Festival, 26th of March onwards, 10 shows. I'll then be going to the Sydney Comedy Festival on the 29th, the 30th of April, and the 1st of May. I will then be going to Brisbane and New Zealand with dates soon to be announced in June. So check me out. My show is called Unrelenting Ultraviolence and it's good. I did it in Adelaide and Perth and it's good. You're going to love it. And also get onto my Patreon. Subscribe to my Patreon. Greg Larson, Larson with an EN, Patreon.com// someone, I don't know what a / is and I don't know what a / is. The slash that you do. Greg Larson on Patreon. Is it Greg Larson comedian or is it Greg Larson? Just Greg Larson. GregLarsen on Patreon. Subscribe to my Patreon. Support this podcast. Support my comedy endeavors and come and see me live. Let's get on with the show.
The Greg Larson Show. The big unit is ready to go. The Greg Larson Show. Muck around on the marzipan. A fresh custard in his hand. The greatest podcast in all the land. Greg Larson Show. Yeah. What we need, another podcast show.
This isn't that funny, but I was just recording me making all these sounds during the intro song that you just heard then. I was going, bleh, bleh. And then I realized I wasn't recording, so I was just a man in his room going, bleh, bleh, to no one. So there you go. There's a little bit of fun for you.
I am a fuckhead.
We believe that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center in New York.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
How you guys doing? We're at war with Iran. Anyone who says we're not at war with Iran is an idiot because we're at war with Iran. Australia is providing military support and various different things. And also Iran just hit I think I don't know if it's an ADF base or like a base where ADF personnel are there. We're at war with Iran. Come on, get over it. Like it's like how we say we don't ship weapons to Israel. It's like, oh no, we ship like bits of weapons to Israel and they put them together. Fucking, you know, you can't go into IKEA and go, oh, you don't sell tables. You only sell all the elements of a table and that I have to put together, which actually fuck that. How did that happen? I'm sick of building shit. If I knew how to screw shit together and hammer shit together, that's half the shit. I can get some fucking wood, man. Getting wood's not the issue. The issue is I'm very uncoordinated and I can't fucking hold one bit of wood up against another bit of wood and make them stick together. That's the hard part. A flat pack table, you haven't made it. Like you've just made an expensive just chunks of wood. I can just go down to the tip and get fucking chunks of wood, man. I can do it. I know a guy. So just, sorry, it's going for a while. So yeah, just a little reminder if you're an Australian, time to donate money to political parties that aren't the Liberal Party or the Labor Party. Fuck the Labor Party, piece of shit party, Anthony Albanese, scumbag. Write to your local member, tell them you'll never vote for him again, scumbag, piece of shit, fuck you, fuck off. How's that for a bit of social cohesion? Anyway, I'm going to continue now with my political series where I explain different political movements and political ideologies. And this week I am going to talk about fascism. That's right, the big one. Is it the big one?
Price check on fascism? That doesn't make sense. It's a high voice and I'm saying price check. That would be a good thing if you went to the supermarket and you said, how much are these XL jumbo condoms? And then someone had to go over the sound system and go, we need a price check on these XL jumbo condoms because the guy here must have a big hog. And then everyone comes running out and they say, you've got the biggest hog in the world.
So, yeah, we're going to talk about fascism. And I mean, the sort of disclaimer here, or not disclaimer, I guess. The idea is that I'm going to talk about different political ideologies, some economic ideologies, all the rest of it, to give you an idea about what kind of ideology you should pick. Because you got to pick one, otherwise, what are you going to do? You got to pick one and then get real mad at everyone else, right? You have to. And so I'm going through. Last time we did liberalism and capitalism, which I feel like are intertwined enough that I talked about them both in the one episode. This week I'm talking about fascism. I will talk about socialism and communism and anarchy and I guess it's like democracy is not really a political. There's others I'll talk about. Monarchies. Talk about monarchies. What if we had a monarchy again? We literally live in a monarchy. Right now in Australia, you live in a world where there is a man who is magic, who, like we say, is a magic man, and he's special because he has magic blood and he's the boss of us. And it's crazy that we just kind of accept that. Like we're just like, that's fine. But anyway, the idea is that in each one of these episodes, I give you the information, an unbiased, completely factual, rundown of these different political ideologies. But I will say when it comes to fascism, this one is like bad. I know that's a hot take. I know that's a very hot take. Business, don't get it. Fascists are real bad. Fascism bad, right? And that's not my opinion. That's just an objective fact, right? I need you to understand that before we go into it. That yes, I guess that could be your ideology in the same way that you could be like, my ideology is that I want to get hit in the head with a brick. Like in theory you can choose that, but, bad call, dude. Bad call. So this isn't to help you decide to be a fascist, because I don't think you should be a fascist. Again, a controversial opinion, I know, but I'm willing to say it. I don't think you should be a fascist. And in fact, I think if you were a fascist, bad, that bad. But having said that, it's a political ideology that I feel like it's a word that gets thrown around a lot. And this is, we're learning here. This is about learning. And as I say, I am, someone who has graduated from an arts degree, and I'm telling you all these political things off the top of my head. This is from memory. I'm a human encyclopedia. I'm not looking shit up, dude. It's the whole point. I'm not looking shit up. But this is like a little learning exercise, because I think fascism is a word that gets misused a lot, right? People don't really know what it is. And I think that it gets misused and it gets overused to the point where the word almost has no meaning, right? And I think it's important that we know what it is, so that when someone is a real fascist, we can go, well, hang on a minute, or hang on a second, right? A lot of people use fascism just to mean bad government. Government no good, they're fascist. That person over there, they're a cunt, fascist, right? They just use it to just generally in place of asshole or fuckwit. Like I remember when I was in high school, my friend Bob's dad, he was a nudist. That's got nothing to do with it, but he was, I remember once seeing him naked. Again, the fact that he's naked in this story has nothing to do with the story, but it doesn't leave you. You know what I mean? Like he was naked, crouched on the floor in the kitchen, and I could see his balls like touching the cold tiles of the floor. Anyway, he was trying to fix the oven door. That's the point of this story. He was trying to fix the oven door as his balls touched the floor. And the oven door was being stubborn. I don't know what was wrong with it. It was like it wasn't closing properly, and he was like, and he was an old Englishman, right? This fellow, this nudist fellow, and he goes, "Oh, you bloody fascist!" And he called the oven door a fascist. And now I don't think that he was using that term technically correct, because I don't believe that oven door believed in a top-down authoritarian power structure. You know what I'm saying? I think the oven door was just an inanimate piece of metal and glass. It's a word. Fascism is a word that gets misused even more than things like anarchy, socialism, and communism, which are words that are misused a lot. And also they have nothing to do with fascism. Anyone who says, it's actually very similar, it's a horseshoe theory. Fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. Shut up. And spoiler alert for the next episode when I talk about socialism and communism and anarchy. Maybe anarchy will be its own one. I don't know. Definitely socialism and communism will be discussed in the same episode.
Here we go.
So what I'm saying is fascist gets used a lot to describe basically any government, any leader who is bad or authoritarian. And it is true that all fascists are authoritarian, right? But not everyone who is authoritarian is a fascist. And I'll go into that in a little bit more, right? Like here in Australia, like everyone gets called a fascist. Everybody who is right-wing or conservative gets called a fascist. And I think it's, it can water it down. Like Pauline Hanson gets called a fascist. That's debatable. Honestly, I don't know enough about everything that she fucking believes. She's a fuckhead and a racist. I don't know if she's a fascist. I've heard George W. Bush get called a fascist. He definitely wasn't. He was a neoconservative. I'm not saying he was not a piece of shit. I'm just saying he wasn't a fascist, right? People call Donald Trump a fascist. And in that case, they are absolutely correct. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. And that's the problem, right? Is because people say, oh, Donald Trump's a fascist. He's not a fascist. Oh, you said that about George W. Bush, and people said that about Obama. And they did say that about George W. Bush and Obama. When they're talking about Donald Trump, they're actually being quite accurate. He is a fascist. So I'm going to tell you what fascism is exactly, right? This is, again, an unbiased, completely factual accounting of fascism as a political philosophy and as a movement. So to put it, I guess, scientifically and frankly, fascism is for stupid idiot dog cunts, right? That's I don't mean that in a pejorative way. I'm not trying to say, I hate you because you're fascist. I'm saying that if you are a stupid idiot dog cunt, then fascism is your philosophy, right? It's like saying that acrobatics are for people that are very flexible. It's like saying swimming is for people who enjoy being in the water. Fascism is for people who are stupid idiot dog cunts who have, piss inside their mind. They don't have human brains. They have piss sloshing around in their skulls. I'm just being very unbiased, very objective here. If you are a fascist, it's because you are dumb and stupid and you're a fuckhead, right? It's probably the single most important and defining aspect of fascism is that it sucks, and 100% of the people who believe in it fucking suck, right? That's just an objective analysis.
Died on 9/11. That you're trying to be. Do not invoke 9/11 for political purpose.
Now I just need to be clear when I say this, right? Because I am totally unbiased. This is just, I'm here delivering a public service, and this is just an informative podcast. Everything I've said is objective fact. Now, there are all kinds of economic philosophies, political philosophies and ideologies, religious, moral, whatever. There's all kinds that have serious drawbacks, some that are good, some that are bad. Nothing is perfect, right? There's all kinds of ideologies that might make sense maybe on paper, but then don't really work out in reality. There might be some kind of political philosophies that are pretty morally reprehensible, but maybe just have like one or two redeeming qualities. It's important to remember that fascism is not even good on paper. It's a piss-soaked paper with the word "I eat shit" written on it. There are no redeeming qualities. It's bad in practice and it's bad in theory, right? Because its entire basis is dumb cunt fuckhead. Its entire basis is dumb cunt fuckhead. That all makes sense the more I explain it, right? Let me give you an analogy. Let me give you an analogy about fascism. Let's say that we as a society collectively say, let's make a spaghetti bolognese dinner. Oh my God, we'll have a spaghetti bolognese dinner. I got a fucking sound effect for that.
Hey, that's a spicy meatball.
Now, there'll be all kinds of disagreements about how we're going to make the spaghetti bolognese, what's it going to look like. There might be someone out there going, hey, why don't we make a vegan spaghetti bolognese using mushrooms instead of, beef and pork? And someone else might say, well, you know what? That's not traditional. And if it doesn't have meat, then it's not traditional. And if it's not traditional, then it's not a bolognese at all. I'm not saying it's bad, but that's a different kind of spaghetti, right? And then someone else says, well, I think the best way to make a bolognese is to use the most expensive ingredients you can possibly buy and hand make the pasta, because I think the most important thing is taste and luxury. That is the number one priority. And then someone else says the opposite of that. They say you should use the absolute cheapest possible ingredients, ultra processed food, because for them, the sign of a good spaghetti bolognese is one that is cheap. Saving money is their number one priority, not the flavor. You might have someone who's morally reprehensible who says, hey, maybe we should make spaghetti bolognese with nicotine in it. That way people will get addicted to it, and then they'll have to keep coming back to us for their pasta because it's got nicotine in the pasta, and they're forced to eat our bolognese. And there might be people who have unrealistic expectations about the bolognese. They might say, well, the bolognese can only be made in Italy at a certain time of year in a certain region of Italy and by a certain person. And then it's like, well, this bolognese is never going to happen, right? But in all of these cases, you have people with vastly differing opinions and motivations who want to make a bolognese, and the results will vary from good to terrible depending on what you want and who you are. Some of these ideas are good, some of them are terrible, but they're all at least on some level trying to make a bolognese. If you ask a fascist how to make bolognese, they would say, oh yeah, you got to crush up glass and insert it into the eye of your dick hole. Also, then we got to kill anyone who has a skull shape that is weird, because people with weird skull shapes use mind control and they make our testicles rot off. That's what a fascist would say if they were asked to make spaghetti bolognese. The entire premise of what fascists believe is factually and demonstrably wrong. They believe things that are incorrect from the beginning and are terrible in theory and in practice. They are destined to fail. Their ideas will not work. And if for some reason their ideas did work and they didn't fail, it will be the worst thing that has ever happened to humanity and millions will die because fascists are dumb, stupid, fucking cockheads. But I should go into what it is specifically. Like what is fascism? What is the belief? Right. And it really comes out of nationalism and the birth of nation states. If you want to hear more about that, I really go into that a fair bit more in the Anzac Day episode that got in trouble for Sky News, and it really helped my listenership. But I made an episode about Anzac Day, about nationalism and national myths and all the rest of it. But to cut a long story short, in the last few hundred years of human civilization, modern nation states as we understand them really took off as the dominant way of like having a place, right? There were no more empires and tribes and, you know, fuzzy borders and all the rest of it. You have nation states with centralized control, with, you know, centers of power where things were, you know, pretty uniform across the board, where you have a national flag, and it was different to city-states or the old monarchies or the old empires, right? And it changed the way people had motivation and how they felt about, I guess, the state or like their government or their leaders or whatever, you know, like, I mean, and I'm just fucking, don't at me. I'm simpler. Like, this is a fucking podcast where I play Michael Jackson sounds and other sounds like this one. You know, like I'm glossing over things and really simplifying things. But in ancient Rome, for example, like the Roman Empire, I mean, not just the city, but in the Empire of Rome, people, if you were in the army in ancient Rome, if you were a legionnaire, you're not really fighting for the glory of Rome. You don't give a fuck about the glory of Rome. No cunt cares about Rome. You fight for Caesar. Or fucking Octavian, or whoever your general is that you're loyal to. He's like, oh, we'll do this. And also, you will fight for slaves because you'll be like, oh, cool, we can get some fucking slaves if we kill all these dudes, and we'll keep the survivors as slaves, or money or gold or whatever. Plunder. You're fighting for plunder. People, and all throughout history, in all civilizations, people are loyal to monarchs or local lords or, you know, like their city or their like sort of smaller community. And, you know, you would rally people behind a banner, not because you're like, this is the nation, but because like we are, you know, maybe religion's involved, you know, like the monarch is in some, like in ancient China, for example, I think the emperor was basically God. Or a deity? I think I could be getting that wrong. Someone with ancient Chinese emperor knowledge, tell me. They were definitely divine. They were definitely more than a human. Whereas, like in Europe, they were not gods or anything like that, but they were sort of, what's the word? Like ordained by God, I guess. But then you had all these nation states popping up, right? Like Germany was invented. It's weird to think that America is older than Germany. Like Germany is a younger country than America. Germany was created in like 1870 or something like that. Before then there was Bavaria and Prussia and whatever. And people would say, we speak German. Germany would be, I guess, Germanic would be referred to like loose collections of people and areas. And Germany was sort of a region, in the same way that Oceania is a region, but we would call ourselves Australians, and a Bavarian would call themselves Bavarian and all that. And then they made Germany, and the same with Italy. Italy was created around 1870 as well. I think maybe I'm wrong. Who knows?
Poinus.
But for people who've listened to the Anzac Day episode, you'll remember this quote from the Marquis di Azeglio. Some Italian cunt, who said, when they created the state of Italy, someone was quoted in saying, we have made Italy, now we must make Italians. Right? And that was this idea that you had people who were like, you know, someone who lived in Rome would be like, I'm a Roman. Someone who lived in Sicily would be like, I'm a Sicilian. I'm Tuscan, right? Yes, you would say loosely all these different places and city-states and whatever are Italy, I guess. But there's no Italian national identity. They created it. And that's nationalism, right? That's nationalism. That was a big thing in the 19th century, the 20th century, and still is today, this idea of nationalism, that there's this unifying thing and we all unite under this one flag, this one nation state that has a very specific set of borders, a very specific bureaucracy, a set of laws that applies to all people all the time. And you have to create this sense of identity, right? Like people had these ideas about what it meant to be German or Italian or Japanese. I've used those three countries specifically because I don't know if you know a little bit about them, but in World War II, they had those three countries had very similar ideas about ethnicity and blowing up people in other countries. But basically you had all these groups of people that had similar languages and now they needed flags, they needed myths. And all the countries created myths. All the nation states around the world have myths. And myths need to be easy, right? You need to understand, they need to be easy, they need to understand, right? We have our own myths. I talk about the Anzac myth and the thing. That's not that a myth that the Anzacs were real. The Anzacs obviously were real. They went to, Gallipoli and they were shot and killed. But we have this myth that they died for our country. They weren't defending us in any way, shape or form. I'm not talking shit on the Anzacs. I never did talk shit on the Anzacs. They were poor people who died in a brutal war for no reason. But our myth has to create a reason and we create a national identity behind it, right? It's like Scotland, William Wallace, Braveheart, the big boy. Aye, laddie.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Ho, ho, ho.
Like, it's difficult to understand the history and the complicated power structures of medieval Britain at the time, where you had lords and kings and dukes and different loyalties to different people. And it's simply the ideas of England and Scotland as these singular nation states. They weren't really it's very hard to sort of explain how William Wallace was a noble vying for power against other nobles and looking for, struggling against a line of succession of England, but not necessarily it's easy to just go, all right, cool. There's a fucking country called England and a country called Scotland, and Scotland was fighting for their freedom to be free, right? It's easier to understand than than these stupidly complicated lineages of succession of European royal families that just led to maps that looked like a spew up. You look at a map from Middle Ages Europe and it's like a spew up. There's all these little bits and spews. So there's this new thing, right? It's called nationalism. You're not loyal to a noble or a village. You're loyal to your nation. You're all Scottish. You're all English. You're all German. You're all American. You're all Canadian. And along with nationalism came ethno-nationalism, which is the dumbest form of nationalism. Nationalism's already kind of dumb, but then you got ethno-nationalism. And that's where it's not just your identity as your identity is not just, I'm Scottish, I live in Scotland. It's also you have to be ethnically Scottish, right? And the Germans, and we're going to go into the Germans in a little bit, but you don't have the right skin color. Yeah, you're not a German. If Chinese nationalists would have been the same, the Japanese nationalists, they were English nationalists. It's if you're not ethnically this particular ethnicity, if you don't look this certain way, you are not part of this country, right? If you don't have the right skin color, an English nationalist would say if you're not English unless you look English, unless you have the English features. You have to have that fucking fucked up sunken bottom jaw, and this whiny, annoying voice, and just this blistery red face that just looks like a bag of chopped up assholes. And that's the only people who are allowed to be British. You know, you got to be white with fucking freckled yuck head, like a bald head. You got to go, what's all this then? And you slop around and you're British, you're English. Anyone else who doesn't look like that, wrong. You're not. And the most insane and batshit crazy form of ethno-nationalism is fascism, right? And fascism is more than just ethno-nationalism, right? It is what it is I'm about to fucking tell you what it is. Crabman. And ethno-nationalism fascism was created in Italy. That's where fascism comes from. Even the word comes from, an Italian word, basically, or a Latin word. So it was invented in Italy, fascism as a movement by a guy called Mussolini. He didn't actually invent it. I don't know who the fuck invented it specifically. I don't know. I think it's the other thing. We don't need to go into we don't need to go to who's who of fashion. They're all dog cunts. Like, they're all dog cunts. I'm glossing over it all. Is this guy called Mussolini, right? He was a piece of shit. Later, he got kicked to death and strung up in the street. That's pretty funny. I don't know if you'd know about this Mussolini guy, but look him up and you will say he pretty much deserved that. But fascism came out of Italy, and as far as I'm aware, and I could be getting this wrong. I could be getting this wrong.
Can we get a?
I could be getting this wrong, but I believe that Italy is the only country that has ever been, not just the only fascist country. There's been other fascist countries, but the only country that has openly said we are a fascist country. Like the Italian fascists said, we are fascists, as opposed to other fascists who have used all kinds of words and whatever. And now fascism, the word fascism has such a bad reputation. And you know what? I think rightly so. That no one, current fascists would never call themselves fascists, right? Because again, the word fascist now just kind of means asshole. You know, it's almost lost its meaning because we call everyone we hate a fascist. But in Italy, they actually called themselves fascists. They were the only ones who proudly called themselves fascists. And Mussolini was like, what's that character in I Think You Should Leave, Tim Robinson, where he does the silent actor? He's like, I like old stuff. I like old stuff. That's Mussolini, right? He liked old stuff. He liked Plato. He liked ancient Greece and ancient Italy, ancient Rome. He liked old philosophies. And the fascists, Mussolini, they love the idea of natural hierarchies, you know, and Plato, I believe, talked about this. I don't know. I don't fucking know what fucking Plato talked about. Plato, it was just found dead in Central Park. Get Ice Tea to investigate. The Special Victims Unit. But they loved all this old shit, right? And they believed in natural hierarchies. They believed in sort of a natural order, that there were some people who were born to rule. They were simply leaders and rulers, and others were born to follow. They were sheep. There were wolves and sheep, right? They believed in hierarchies. They believed, the fascists, that the best kind of power was a single dude at the top-down power, a benevolent dictator, someone who knows everything, who knows what's best for everyone, and just lays it all out. This is how it should be done. But that person shouldn't be a king. That's the other thing, is they didn't believe in things like kings and queens. The fascists were sort of against that old aristocracy kind of thing. They believed that, you know, they believed that, you know, in, I'm using air quotes here, like meritocracy, right? Like a fascist leader earns his place at the top. And I say his specifically, it's always him. But, you know, obviously that's not merit. That's a fucking, like Mussolini is a fucking sperm. But they basically believed, the best man that should be at the top in the top job, and coincidentally, they always believed I'm the best man. I'm the best man. I'm the one who knows everything. And so that's what they believed in, right? They believed in top-down power structures. They believed in natural hierarchies. The fascists in Italy, they believed in violence, authoritarianism, ultranationalists, and they were also driven by a very strong hatred of socialists, anarchists, and communists. Socialists, anarchists, and communists. I mean, socialists, I get annoyed saying socialists and communists because it's kind of like there's more to talk about that in the socialist communist episode. But they hated lefties, right? They hated lefties. And they were very afraid because this was right around the time the Soviet Union had been created, communism was becoming a thing, fascists fucking hated them. But the important thing to remember about fascism and fascists is that they believe in authoritarianism, right? That is a dictator who has absolute power, right? The party is in total control. But it's important to remember that they are one of the only ideologies, at least, modern ideologies, where being an authoritarian dictator is the point. It's kind of the whole point, right? Now, like, I'm not going to sit here and as much as a big fucking lefty you think I am, I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, the Soviet Union was great. Fucking Stalin. Ooh, Stalin was great. Nah, man, look him up. Stalin was actually not great. Stalin, he's been found dead in New York City. Quick, get iced tea. And the guy that played Beach's lover in Oz. What's that actor's name? Oz. It's a great show, but you'll only ever watch it once because it's so fucking depressing. Like, literally just the worst things happen to everyone all the time. Have you seen Oz? It's fucked up. Oz. HBO. The fuck was I talking about? Oh yeah, like Stalin and that, right? So Stalin was an authoritarian. I'm not telling any tales out of school here. And there are people that will argue that, communism, socialism, it has to have an autocrat leading it, a dictator leading it, right? I would say that just listen to the episode I'd say about socialism, right? That's another time. But certainly, whatever you can say about socialism or communism that's bad, and there's a lot of things to say that are bad, and whatever you can say about a lot of different systems of government that is bad, oftentimes being a dictator is not necessarily the point. In fact, it is there should not be a dictator. A communist country is an oxymoron because communism is a stateless society, but there should not be a dictator. It's supposed to be about power to the workers and all the rest of it, right? Whether that works out in reality, that's a topic for another day. What I'm saying is there's a difference between a dictator who just becomes a dictator because they're like, this is what I want to do, and being a dictator is the way to get it, versus fascism where being a dictator is the point. I feel like I'm not making sense, but it makes sense in my mind. Fascism is about being authoritarianism. You can't be a fascist and not be like a dictator. You can be a fascist who supports the party or whatever, but what I'm saying is like a dictatorship is necessary. It's like saying, I want to have a monarchy, but I don't want to have like a king or a queen. Well, no, then you don't want to have a monarchy, right? You, in theory, you can have a socialist country without a dictator, a communist country without a dictator, or many kinds of countries without a dictator. You can't have a fascist country without a dictator because being a dictator is part of the point of fascism. They believe that a dictator is needed. So that's That's fascism, and that's what their view on authoritarianism, and they incorporate that into their iconography, right? The word fascist, it comes from fasces or fasces. I don't know how to fucking pronounce it right. Essentially, in ancient Rome, there was and in ancient Etruscan civilizations as well. There was this thing, it was like a big bundle of sticks with an axe on it. Looks stupid. And it was a thing that they would hold, like, and you can see it. There's a great TV show called Rome. I actually fucking love this show so much on HBO. You could check out HBO Max. There's some great stuff on there.
Dick.
It's 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Everyone get...
But there's a show called Rome, and there's if you watch, I really like that show. It's as historically accurate as any kind of show set in ancient Rome is going to get. But there's a bit where they go into the Senate house, and you can see these guys, they're like guards of the Senate house, and they're holding these fasces, which are these bundles of sticks that look like a little axe. It looks like it would be useless as a weapon, and it is probably useless as a weapon, but they are a symbol that people would hold. And the ancient Roman kings would have guards that would hold these fasces, and they were used to symbolize the king's absolute power. And so the word fascism comes from these fasces, right? And they used fasces as a symbol in Italy. And this ties into the idea that nationalism and ultranationalism and fascism requires these myths. And this is what I'm talking about when I talk about myths. Because the fascists in Italy wanted to tie themselves to the power of ancient Rome. That to them was their great lineage. We are the descendants of the ancient Romans. You know, ancient Rome and 20th century Italy had basically nothing to do with each other. Apart from that, they were centered in the same place for a while. The Roman Empire, the collapse of the Western Roman Empire was only like, the Roman Empire still existed for hundreds of years, not even in Italy. We call it the Byzantine Empire today, but that back then they still called it the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire had nothing to do with 20th century Italy. Like culturally, religiously, cuisinely, the food, everything. Like the Romans weren't sitting there eating spaghetti bolognese. You know what I mean? Like they were worshipping different gods. They weren't Catholic. Or they did become Catholic in the end. So, you know, but like Rome and also Rome at its height was one of the biggest empires in history. They were all around all around Europe, all around Northern Africa, Egypt, Middle East. They were rooting away. Realistically, just about anyone on earth, like mathematically, you've got whoever you are, there's some heritage you can trace back to ancient Rome, for sure. There's some Roman cunt that rooted someone else that's your, great million whatever grandfather. And also Rome was like super diverse. Like Rome was like this huge empire that spanned all this place. It wasn't like, just Italians and whatever. It was super diverse, and not in like in a woke way. I can't believe I just said the word woke. Yuck. Oh, crab man.
There's a crab man sitting in the sand. Crab man.
But Rome was diverse in the way that like they had a lot of diverse slaves. They had slaves from all around. But Romans also like they were bad, man. They hated if you're a woman, fuck, they hated you. But they also didn't really have much in the way of racism as we understand it, because we hadn't invented race yet as a scientific concept. You know, if you had dark skin, you had blue eyes, blonde hair, red hair, black hair, whatever, they're just like, they don't give a shit. You paying your fucking taxes, cool. If you were Roman, like if you lived in the Roman Empire, you probably wouldn't have even called yourself Roman unless you lived literally in the city of Rome. And if you're in the army in ancient Rome, you don't give a fuck about the glory of Rome. You give a fuck about the slaves you're going to get when you kill all those cunts that your general told you to kill. And if you liked your general enough and he said, hey, kill everyone in Rome, you'd be like, fucking, yeah, cool. Who gives a shit? I will. You know, it wasn't like a modern nation state. It was nothing like a modern nation state. But the fascists in Italy made out that Rome was this monolithic state, and modern Italy was like this somehow continuation of this great empire, stirring up this national myth, like nationalist myths, right? So the Italians invented fascism. Then it got picked up by a fellow named Adolf Hitler. Not a good guy. Not a good guy.
Crab man.
He was a bad guy. Hitler modeled himself on Mussolini. Mussolini was his inspiration. He got the Nazi salute, the Roman style salute, which, by the way, could be a myth. I think there's no historical record that Romans ever did that kind of salute. It was in like Renaissance paintings and stuff, and then people just assumed it was true. But you know, the Nazi salute that came from fascist Italy. And the Nazis became fascist. They are the big fascists, because the Italians were the first fascists, but full credit to the boys. Italians, they didn't love it. They weren't that keen on it. They're at war. They're fighting the war. They're like, are we really fighting this fucking war? And then the Italians finally went, hey Mussolini. And he went, yeah. And they were like, come here for a second. And he went, what? And they beat him to death in the street and strung him up. So the Italians were like the regular people on the street in Italy, a lot of cool guys among them. Not so much in Germany. People really liked Hitler. He went really well because he went in with all the myths, all these weird myths about Aryan race and his anti-Jewish conspiracy theories and the hierarchies of races and all the rest of it. He went full on, and people believed him. They bought it. He sold them on a lie of losing World War I because of because of the Jewish conspiracy. He was like this fucking, you know, he wasn't so great. I realized I was going to say he was fucking racist, man. Yeah. He's Hitler. He's like, he's the main racist. He's the worst one, the big one. Now, they didn't call themselves fascists, the Nazis. They called themselves Nazis. They called themselves National Socialists. And for years after, smug conservative fuckheads have been going, there's National Socialists. They're actually got socialist in the name, so they're actually the most. Hitler was actually left wing. Fuck up, you dickhead. Fuck up. The reason it is a cause of debate, but the reason that they called themselves National Socialism, the National Socialists, is because at the time socialism was just fucking popular. You know, it's like trying to think of an example off the top of my head, like a Pizza Hut. Like Pizza Hut's popular now, isn't it? Everyone's going to Pizza Hut. Everyone's like, oh, you going to Pizza Hut? Who's going to Pizza Hut? You know, and then if a Nazi party came along and said, oh, we're calling ourselves the National Pizza Huts, you know, just because everyone's talking about Pizza Hut. You know how everyone's talking about Pizza Hut? It was like that. Like what I'm saying is socialism was a very, very popular movement, and the Nazis were fascists who basically were like, we are nationalists, fascists, ethno-nationalists, whatever you want to call it. We'll call ourselves, and socialism is popular, and we find it really hard to convince people not to be socialists. But what if we call ourselves National Socialists, which implies that there's like a bit of socialism in there somewhere. There wasn't a bit of socialism in there somewhere. It was just a word. It was just a word that sounded nice to include in their name. That's it. That's all it was. And because socialists were very active in Germany, and they're saying we care about workers, and that was the Nazis' way of kind of saying we care about workers too, I guess. We have socialism in our name. It's like how the word, North Korea, it's the Democratic Republic of North Korea. It's not democratic at all. It's just they just have it in the name. It's like how Pauline Hanson has a human name like Pauline. So you think, oh, she's like a human woman, but she's not a sentient rat fetus. But it's all just smoke and mirrors. Like North Korea is not a democracy, and Pauline Hanson is a sentient rat fetus, right? And fascists and the Nazis, they just believed in nonsense. That's the thing about fascism more than any other modern 20th century onwards form of government or ideology is the foundation of what they believe is based in bullshit, right? So, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, criticize, socialism and stuff all you want, but like the foundation of what they believe was that there is class inequality and financial inequality that is getting worse. And that's a factually accurate description of, especially the economic situation at the end of the fucking 19th century. It was rampant, like inequality, big kids dying in coal mines and stuff, right? There's an accurate description of what's happening. Fascists were like, maybe our country's getting bad because people don't have pure blood and their skulls have different shapes. I'm not exaggerating. That's what they believed. They believed in like skull shape. They would like measure skulls and go like, nah, that skull's too weird. Get out of here. Like, and people in the time, like stuff like, what's it called? Ethnobiology? I forget the fucking term for it. But like this idea of like measuring skulls and stuff, it was briefly scientifically popular in the late 19th century before like, doctors and stuff started going, nah, actually this is bullshit. But the Nazis were a little behind the curve and they were like, no, I reckon it's fucking true, man. And there's still people, and there's still people today that sort of believe this. I mean, of course there's Nazis today, there's fascists today, there's people that fundamentally believe that something to do with the blood in your veins or the shape of your skull means you're more likely to be a criminal or more likely to be a degenerate. And there's plenty of countries, and ethno-nationalism, well, fascism as a word isn't popular and ethno-nationalism as a word isn't popular. There's plenty of countries that are quite ethno-nationalistic, and countries that have parties that are ethno-national. Like in Australia, we got the One Nation Party, the National Party, they're ethno-nationalist parties. And Japan to this day is quite an ethno-nationalist country. You are not really Japanese. Like you can work in Japan, you can have Japanese citizenship, but you're not really a Japanese person unless you're ethnically Japanese. And then, of course, you have the most evil ethno-nationalist nation on earth that's ethnically cleansing hundreds of thousands of people, and that's the state of Israel.
Israel is committing genocide. Israel is committing a genocide. Israel is an apartheid state.
Price check on boycott Israel. Price check on boycott Israel.
But like to describe fascism, I see these things get circulated around a lot where there'll be like lists of like these are the 14 things or the 16 things, and usually there's two people that wrote lists on what fascism is. There's more than two people that have written lists. I've seen dozens, but two that are quite popular that get paraphrased a lot. There's one. There's an Italian guy called Umberto Eco. And he wrote a list of like characteristics of fascism. He lived through Mussolini's Italy, so he probably knew what he's talking about. Someone else called Lawrence W. Britt, who wrote a bunch of rules for like how to spot fascism. But there's all kinds of lists. This is sort of my list that is just a culmination of those lists. Right. This is I'm not making this up. I'm not fucking, I'm just doing a culmination of other lists I've seen. So how do you know when a government or a person is a fascist? I'll try and go through these different points and maybe even give you a little example of each one. I wonder if I got any music that I could play in the background. Should have thought about this before I started. No.
Go fuck yourself.
No.
Great!
No.
Police are still searching for the man.
No. Good enough. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to read the list. I'm not going to play the fucking music while I do it. It doesn't always have to be a funny gag. No, I thought I was going to... fascism was found dead in New York City. Ice-T is here to investigate. And so is Munch. Is one of the detectives called Munch in Law and Order? Is there a guy called Munch? Like Munchera, like Munch. Like Munch on a snack. Is it Munch? Or is it Hunch? is not called hunch. That you would be a stupid idiot if you wrote a detective show and you called someone Detective Hunch. You would be a fucking idiot. And the fascists would be right to take you away. I think it's Munch. Is there a detective in Law and Order called Munch? Call in now. Let me know in the comments below. All right, these are Geggy's list that I've just taken from Umberto Eco and Lawrence W. Britt and like 2 other websites. Just some fucking websites. But this is basically the list of like how you know if someone is a fascist, right? One is the dictator, right? Authoritarian. Being authoritarian, you know, to be a fascist, you've got to be a bunch of these things, if not all of them, right? Because you can have authoritarian monarchs. That's called a monarchy. That's not necessarily fascism, right? But you got a big boy leader who knows what's best. Not a king, a dictator, a Führer, a fucking Mussolini, you know, whatever. And they believe in the big boy, the top-down power structure. The prevalence of national myths, just having these, you know, these ancient traditions, these myths that, you know, may come from reality, may not come from reality. We all have national myths. Like that's not always a fascist thing. In every country has national myths. We have the national myth about the Anzacs. We have ideas in our minds about why they died and who they were that don't necessarily correlate to reality. Scotland has the national myth of William Wallace. You know, the Americans have the national myth of the American Revolution. That, you know, to them it's presented very simply. It's just like, oh, there was a cruel English government and we overthrew them and got our freedom. But in reality, it was a bit more like a bunch of rich aristocrats that were pissed off that they didn't get to be big boys in England, and they were like, oh, we want to kill way more Native Americans, and the English said, no, you can't. And they said, all right, we'll have a revolution, and it's all, you know, whatever. It's national myths, lies, and propaganda. You know, the fascists, the Nazis, they are, you know, they love to openly lie. They have propaganda departments. It's not even like, it's a very conscious thing. These myths, these lies, these, you know, like I don't doubt for a second the Nazis sort of believed what they believed about race, but I do doubt completely that they believed that, you know, that they could have won World War I. They knew they were beaten, but they just said, oh, let's blame it on Jewish people, right? They did the false flag attack of the Reichstag. They knew they set a fire at the Reichstag and then said it was Jewish people and Bolsheviks. They knew they were intentionally lying. So lies, myths, national propaganda. There's always a narrative in fascism, always a narrative that we're in the middle of a decline. The world is going to shit. Our great country used to be great and now it's been weakened by undesirable elements, but we can get it back. It used to be good back in the past. We can get back to that. We can, you know, we can reach that golden age, this mythical golden age, right? It's tied back into the fucking myths and the legends. There's always this legend about this old golden age. And that's the other thing is the point is like, they don't like modernity. The old days were better. There was this golden age, and it's always hard to pin down. It's always hard to describe exactly what was this fucking golden age. What was so good about it? You know, like a perfect example is, I mean, like America, like right now with Trump. He keeps talking about this golden age of America. We need to make America great again. It's like, well, what are you talking about? Specifically when? Like what? And it's always hard to pin down. It's always hard to sort of understand. There's this golden age that used to be there. It's not now, but it will be again. And also, you know, obviously with Nazis and fascists, it's the blame of undesirable elements. You know, so when your country's bad, it's because of undesirable elements. It's because of people from this ethnicity, from this religion, from this race, from this nationality, whatever. Women. It's always undesirable elements. intellectualism is bad. That's what fascists believe very firmly. They hate intellectualism. They love something that Umberto Eco said was that they're obsessed with action for the sake of action. Do it now. Like literally leap before you look. They like do something, take action. And that's why fascists are really good at actually getting shit done and actually taking power, and fucking why they're taking over in America, right? Like Trump doesn't just does it. Like he does, other governments there'd be lawyers going, oh, you if you do this executive order, you might get in trouble with the Supreme Court. And Trump's like, well, I've just done it, so suck my dick off. Just does things. And then intellectualism, I mean, you saw that during COVID and everything, right? Like anyone who has any kind of science background is a fucking enemy. They're plotting, they're scheming. They know too much. They're fancy universities. Well, you got to come down here to the University of Life. Down to the University of Life. We know what's what, and you don't know shit, you fucking ivory towers. Intellectualism, bad. And that feeds back into the lie thing, right? Because, people in charge often went to university and often have degrees in economics or whatever the fuck. And they know that normal people, not everyone does. And they appeal to that. And they say, yeah, intellectuals, all fucking dogs. You disagree? Another point of fascism, disagreement is treason. You disagree, you're treasonous. You're a traitor to the country. I mean, again, fucking Trump, you can see it. Like every time someone questions him, anytime someone questions him, you're a fucking traitor. You're a terrible journalist. You're an un-American. You're pathetic. You're blah, blah, blah. Another one that Umberto Eco was said was obsession with a plot. And that means conspiracy theories, basically. There's always a conspiracy theory. Americans, the Trump, the MAGA crowd had their Pizzagate. And what's funny is, the word conspiracy is so funny to me, right? Because when we say conspiracies, like, oh, do you believe in conspiracies or not? It's like saying, do you believe in rain? Like conspiracy is just a word to describe a meeting of people who are planning something. Like, do you believe in rain? Not today, it didn't rain, but tomorrow it says it will. And yesterday it did. You know what I mean? Like they believed in I believe in the conspiracy that the Nazis planned the Holocaust. And that's not, when I say the conspiracy, I don't mean this weird theory. It's a factually documented thing. There was a conspiracy that took place. There's a movie called The Conspiracy, all about the meeting that they had at the Wannsee conference, where they formalized what would take place during the Holocaust, right? That was, by definition, a conspiracy. It was conspirators sitting around talking about what they would do in secret. What I'm saying is the fascists always believe in conspiracy theories, but then an actual conspiracy like the Epstein files comes up. So they believed in Pizzagate, that there was like this pizza shop in New York where people were trading boys and drinking their blood. And they're like, oh, that's true. But then an actual conspiracy that is factually proven, which is that Donald Trump is a pedophile, and that's been proven in the Epstein files, is like, oh no, that's not. They think it's a conspiracy that they think the Epstein files have been faked. The other point of fascism is there's always a paradox where your country is strong and your enemies are weak, but your enemies are also strong and you are also weak. That doesn't make sense, does it? Because it doesn't make sense. It's a paradox where you're both strong and weak at the same time, and your enemies are both strong and weak at the same time. Your country is strong, powerful. You are the superhumans, the Übermensch. You are the gods that walk the earth. And your enemy is pathetic. Your enemy's a worm. Your enemy's subhuman. But at the same time, your enemy, who, you know, all the propaganda tells you is pathetic and stupid and bad and weak and terrible, is also about to destroy your entire society. Right? Like, you're like, so whilst you're strong and your society is strong and your military is strong, which the propaganda tells you, the propaganda also tells you it could all collapse in a moment because your enemy, who we say is weak and pathetic, is about to kill every single one of you. So it's this paradox. And it's literally, I can point to, and Israel as a perfect example. Yeah, I'm going to go on about it again. They have this paradox where on the one hand, they're like, these countries want to wipe Israel off the map. On the other hand, we have nuclear weapons and Iron Dome, and we could literally destroy every single country in the Middle East overnight if we wanted to, and none of these countries could possibly wipe us off the map. Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, none of these countries pose an actual threat to the existence of Israel. Not even close. Israel has nuclear weapons. They can fucking delete countries in minutes. But they have to, at the same time, appear like they are in a state of existential threat, that the state of Israel might be crushed and destroyed overnight. But at the same time, their enemies are weak and pathetic. Fascists believe, one of the points that they believe is strength and violence is power, and power is good. Warfare is always good. They just they believe in permanent warfare. They believe in expansion. They believe that, you know, you got to keep fighting. You got to, the Nazis wanted Lebensraum. Israel wants greater Israel. I'm not even saying Israel is a fascist state. I don't know what they're an ethno-nationalist state for sure. They're an ethno-nationalist apartheid state. Fascism, they're not, because they don't have a dictator. But you know, the fascists want violence all the time. Right, like violence isn't just a means to an end; it is kind of a bit the end itself, right? Because violence means you're powerful. It's like those manosphere cunts, you know, like I punch things hard, and that shows that I have value. To a fascist, being violent shows that you have value, and it's part of the entire point of being a fascist. They believe that the weak are pathetic. They believe in newspeak. Is what Umberto Eco said, and that's what Orwell wrote about, or created in 1984, newspeak, dumbed down language, talking points you repeat ad nauseum. You hear that all the time. You hear newspeak all the time. I mean, it's what fucking every government does this. America does it in a major way. Trump is a master of it, right? He just keeps going, Sleepy Joe, Sleepy Joe, Sleepy Joe. He just says Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, and then everyone just repeats it. You use dumbed down language, you repeat things ad nauseum, you create a narrative using newspeak is the word that they use. You know, Israel uses it. They talk about like Hamas are using human shields. Israel has a right to exist. They just keep saying, they have slogans basically that they say over and over again. Australians use it. Australian government use it. They say working families. They say, you know, better off, working families, fair go. There's a pass the pub test. Just fucking slogans, right? It's just newspeak. It just makes you feel like you understand these complicated things with very, very basic, simple language, so that a complicated issue doesn't seem so complicated. So basically, a fascist is someone that meets almost all of those qualities, right? That's why I say Israel's not really a fascist country. I'm not saying that they're an ethno-nationalist country because they have a prime minister and whatever. If they had a dictator, you know, they're pretty much just missing the dictator part of it, I think. I mean, there's not much, you could, but whenever someone posts around one of these lists, and you see them all the time, you'll see like, oh, here's a list of different things that are fascist. And you read this list of fascist qualities. It sometimes feels like someone's making a smug political sort of joke in America, like, this is interesting. I just found this list of different qualities. Remind you of any certain orange gentleman?
Crabman.
It's like, it feels like a lame joke. It feels like a sort of lame bit of satire. It feels like if you made a movie about Adolf Hitler, and at one point Hitler in the movie says, we actually have to make Germany great again, and then sort of winks at the camera, and people who love watching the ABC go, oh, that's clever satire. You know, you read out one of these lists and people think you're making some fucking snarky little, America. Excuse me, Mr. Trump. I think you've dropped your list. But the thing is, it is true. Like, it's just true. Right? It's like sometimes a thing feels hack because it is true. I don't remember who said it, but someone said somewhere, someone tweeted somewhere, I don't know. I don't fucking remember who. I feel like it was a tweet that went viral somewhere where someone said if you read out the list of things that the CIA has openly admitted to on, like, the Wikipedia article of things the CIA has openly admitted to, you sound like a nut job. Like, people wouldn't believe you because even though these are factually true things that the CIA has released documents said, yes, we did this. If you read them all out in order, people would go, that sounds crazy. Right? It's really frustrating when we use the word fascist so much and we talk about so much, and then you see these lists and that people are like, oh, okay, but don't fucking over, like, Trump's not Trump is a fascist. That's the thing. Trump and his cronies genuinely, truly are fascists who are trying to take over America and make it a fascist country, right? They're trying to have one of the points I left out too was like corporatism and corporate power. Like, fascists will often have, you know, they don't want free markets, but they also don't want state-run economies. They want corporations. You know, the Nazis used companies like IBM and BMW and all the rest of it, right? They like essentially state-sponsored monopolies, corporations, private businesses, corporate cronyism, corporate power. Trump and his cronies, that's what they want, right? That's what they're trying to do. They believe in something. This is something that like far-right fascists in America believe, and it's called the unitary executive theory. And this is a true thing that Steve Bannon and a lot of Trump high-ups, including Trump himself, believe. The unitary executive theory is a far-right fascist interpretation of the American Constitution, where they truly believe that the Constitution basically means the president has unlimited power, has absolute power, right? That the president is a dictator. Essentially, that the president cannot be prosecuted for a crime, that the president can have total power, can not leave office if they want, you know, whatever. And everything Trump's doing, like talking about a third term, talking about rigging elections, like openly talking about rigging elections, voter ID laws. I can go on about voter ID laws, but that's like it violates your right to vote if you need voter ID laws. It's the newspeak. The fucking, just the endless warfare, like the warfare is a goal. Like, fucking, we're going to invade Greenland, we'll bomb Venezuela, bomb in Iran, fucking, we need to expand. The fucking insurgency, right? Like, in fucking, when he lost, he told his followers to take over the fucking Capitol building, and they did. They stormed the Capitol building with fucking weapons and zip ties and shit, and then they beat a cop to death, and one of them got shot. And like, it was an insurrection. It was, and I've heard people say, well, it's not an insurrection. It was a riot. And it's like, well, no, I'm not saying it was a good insurrection or a well-planned insurrection. It was a poorly planned insurrection, and an insurrection that was definitely going to fail. But it's still like, if I get a homemade, if I try and make a gun out of like shit I find around the house and I try and kill someone with it and I fail, it's still attempted murder, even though I'm a fuckhead and I've done a bad job. Like, it's like they were fuckheads and they did a bad job of insurrecting, but it was still a fucking insurrection. But what I'm saying is fascism is really real. It's the thing that people forget. It's the thing that people forget because Hitler and Mussolini are almost comic book characters at this point. Right? Like, I mean, you see pictures of Mussolini, it looks fake. The shit, like he had like the headquarters of his fucking office, like had this giant bald head. He looks like an actual Superman villain. Like Nazi shit. Like, it seems like you can't compare anyone to Nazis without someone going, oh, come on. You know, it's like, what is it called? Godwin's law or whatever. It's like, You can never compare anyone to Nazis without someone rolling their eyes and going, okay, you're overreacting. But like, are you always? You know, because remember, the Nazis didn't go from like, oh, hey, how's it going to we've killed 11 million people overnight. It was like slow stages of being democratically elected and passing this law and that law and then, using these backdoor moves to fucking consolidate power and blah, blah, blah. It was a slow, drawn-out process. Fascists really do exist and they really are real. And it's the fact that we have just called everyone a fascist and we've always talked about fascism, it almost feels like a movie, right? It's like if an asteroid was going to hit the Earth. An asteroid could hit the Earth, but even just saying it sounds silly. It's like, no, that's the movie Deep Impact. Fascism sounds almost silly. It's like, oh no, I've seen movies about Hitler, but it's not real. It is real. Like, it is real. Fascists are real and they're everywhere. And I'm not saying this is, I'm not giving advice. I'm not giving advice here.
It's rude o'clock.
This is rude o'clock, and this is not advice. I'm not giving advice, but I'm just saying that I'm not saying that this is good. I'm just saying that there's only one way to eradicate fascism. There's only one way that it's ever worked, right? Heard of this thing called the paradox of tolerance, right? If you are tolerant of the intolerant, then the intolerant will kill you. There's a certain point where it's like, what can you do? And, fascists, you can't negotiate with a fascist. You can't sort of reason with them. You can't talk to them. You can't be like, oh, hey, maybe, because everything they say is in bad faith. Their entire part of their whole thing is that they openly will lie. Like, part of their moral and political philosophy is that it is good to lie to get ahead. Fascists are the embodiment of people that are like, fake it till you make it, like you got to lie to get ahead. You got to punch someone in the face to assert your dominance. They believe in that kind of stuff. It is part of their moral philosophy that it is morally correct to argue in bad faith or lie about something in order to trick you. Because if you trick someone, you've simply beaten them, and beating someone is good. And that shows you're powerful, right? It's like a con man, like a con artist. And I'm thinking about this because I just recently watched a movie about con artists called Matchstick Men with Nicolas Cage. And there's a line that the con artists always say in that movie where it's like, I didn't take it, you gave it to me. They think it's morally fine to steal an old lady's money if they trick her because, well, she shouldn't have been dumb enough to get tricked. That's what fascists genuinely, that's part of their moral philosophy is, if you debate with me, I will lie. I will lie and I will say things that are untrue. And if I win the debate, great. I've won. It doesn't matter how I did it. I won. We know what happens when you negotiate with fascists. We know. We have a perfect example. We have negotiated with fascists in the past. And there is an endpoint to that. And that endpoint is called Auschwitz. That's what happens when you negotiate with fascists. When you allow fascists to speak and when you allow them to debate, and when you allow them, they build Auschwitz and Treblinka, and they kill 11 million people. That's what they do. Fascists will do one of two things. They will kill you, or they will be killed by you. That's because unlike other people's beliefs, right? Violence isn't just what they use to get what they want. Violence is what they want. Right? There's a million beliefs where like people will use violence and they don't necessarily want to use violence, but they feel like they have to. Sometimes they do want to use violence, like, oh, I disagree with you, so I'm going to fucking punch you in the head. But violence is part of the fascist philosophy. It's not just a means to an end. It is the end in and of itself, right? Like, they don't want to kick you in the head so that you will do what they say. They want to kick you in the head because kicking you in the head is their end game. They enjoy violence. They want violence. That is part of the reason. It's the same with why they have dictators. It's not just, oh, we don't want to have a dictator, but we need one to get this done. No, violence and dictators are part of their core philosophy. Lying, violence, dictators, all that shit. And the only way we've ever defeated fascism is World War II. And we did a pretty good job then. So anyway, that's fascism. Normally, with these, I go through the pros and the cons of each political philosophy. For fascism, pros, absolutely none, except the ones in the past looked cool. You got it, yeah. Like they had snappy uniforms. The Mussolini stuff, he had that big head, looked kind of cool, you know. But that was the past. That's the worst thing about fascists today. They don't even look fucking cool. Did you see that military parade that Donald Trump did with the US military? It like, man, North Korea looked way cooler than like, fuck, it looked so shit. All these fucking troops just sort of casually walking down the street. I've never seen the American Army is the largest military force on earth, and I've never seen anything look more unimpressive than just this weird old cunt shitting his pants while these fucking soldiers just sort of amble down the road and like a truck goes past. Like Elon Musk, he does it like fucking Donald Trump. These people look like fucking losers. All those manosphere cunts, they look fucking stupid. They don't even look good. That's the only thing fascists had back in the fucking 30s was that they looked good. Now they look like shit, you fucking losers. So that's the pros of fascism. They look like fucking shit. And the con is they will kill you and everyone you know. Fascists want you dead. That's all they want. They want you to die. So I hope that clears it up. That was my episode on fascism. The next one will be socialism and communism. So stick around for that. I'm trying to play this. That's the one I'm trying to play. Hang on. No, that's I fucked it up. So thanks very much, everybody. Thanks for listening. Stick around. We got more Greg Larson Show coming up. Big shout out to Paul Schaefer and the CBS Orchestra. We'll see you next time on the Greg Larson Show. Oh, shit.
The Greg Larson Show. The big unit is ready to go. The Greg Larson Show. Macarena of the Mazapan, a fresh custard in his hand, the greatest podcast in all the land. Greg Larson Show, yeah. Great, just what we need, another podcast show.